Hello and welcome to the Quantum Bridge. Today we're very pleased to be actually joined by another guest, and today that guest is Asher from a company called CoinJar, and he's not just from CoinJar, he's also, I believe, co-founder and CEO. So hi there, Asher.
Welcome, Matt.
Hiya.
Thank you for joining us. Now, Asher and I have actually had a brief conversation before, and it's quite good to find out how people are. And Gary, my co-host here today, and always doesn't really like this format, finds it very difficult. It may not be the most comfortable for Asher, so I'll try to make this a nice experience. And can I just start, Asher, by saying, again, welcome, thank you again. And maybe just for our viewers, can you give a little bit of background about yourself, about the genesis of CoinJar itself, and then maybe we can just have a chat to and fro about different aspects that brought us to CoinJar and to yourself, and why we use it, and why it's something that we feel is going to, or is already transforming how people can actually use cryptocurrency. So before I go on too much, which I'm always doing, if you could just do a little bit of background, that would be lovely.
Thanks, Casper. I started the company back in 2013, which is 10 years ago this year, in Australia. I'd graduated, started my first job, and I did have an inclination for entrepreneurship, and trying to do something myself. And I think for some things, the idea comes first, and then you build it into a business. But I think, I was always looking for ideas around. Spoke to people who were working on their own ideas. And I think 2013 was a good vintage of startups where the idea of, you could, start a technology business from your bedroom and sort of expand to the world was still just becoming an accepted practice or even acknowledged. So I was looking for a lot of ideas and chanced upon someone else who had built something in the cryptocurrency space, or there was only Bitcoin back in 2013. So we joined forces, raised a little bit of money, and built up one of the earliest venues where you could buy and sell Bitcoin through a company in Australia, at least at that time. So that was in 2013. Since then, we're still primarily Australian based, but we've expanded to the UK. I moved here as well. And yeah, it's been a very interesting ride the last 10 years. Very grateful that I've been able to see the whole rise of a whole industry, seeing how this whole new technology has played out and is still playing out in a very real world sense with current events and all these things happening to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we should say as well is, actually, for those who don't know, that CoinJar is essentially, it's like a regular MasterCard, but it allows you to, at the point of sale, essentially, use your cryptocurrencies in any establishment that takes MasterCard, which is I don't think a lot of people are aware of this at the minute, and we hear this a lot with either people or businesses that they sort of sometimes they'll say, "Oh, we take Bitcoin," and it's like, well, you always have if you've got a MasterCard machine, and not just Bitcoin. You can take all these payments, and it's. I mean, how many coins does it support at the moment? Do you know?
It supports everything on our website, and I think we've got 54 cryptocurrencies right now. So yeah, absolutely right, Gary. You can use any of those on your CoinJar debit card, which is available in Australia and the UK. So I guess when we started, we were looking to build services for a retail audience, something that was accessible. We thought the only way we can make this industry grow is by offering more people these services and making it simple. So, acquiring your first bits of cryptocurrency, sending it to a friend, buying a coffee, those are all maybe not as novel 10 years later as they were 10 years before. but also very cognizant that someone's got to build a lot of infrastructure and tools and services for other people to experiment. And you've seen many other aspects of cryptocurrency grow over the last 10 years, from NFTs, fundraising, and different applications of the technology.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite incredible, actually, thinking about the time that you started. I know that there was that sort of emergence of these types of companies, but to put it back in context for a moment, how far you've come and what a difficult journey it would have been at the beginning. I mean, the business model for the likes of Uber, for example, and there's a whole host of other companies that are now seen as fixtures, right, around the world, and they're these huge companies. At the time that you were starting, that wasn't really the case, was it? I mean, to get the sort of support that you might have needed, or to have that vision and strength of will to drive this forward, I can't think that was easy from that sort of year onwards, from sort of 2013.
Yeah, I mean, the early days, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin was still quite on the fringes. People who were interested were similarly quite value driven, and looking for something more meaningful, right? And I guess the sort of lore behind why Bitcoin exists in the first place and how it came to be attracted a lot of people. And I guess now there's an accepted business use case for it, but very honest, people who have a certain ideology and you're telling it to everyone else, and especially if you're a bank or you're a service provider, there's still a bit of disconnect saying, how do these beliefs transfer to a working business model? But now there's so many angles where you could build a business based on cryptocurrency.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons that we wanted to bring this out on the Quantum Bridge is because we believe that many of the people who will engage with our material and with the other conversations that we have and that we upload for people to see, is that a lot of people, not least very much now, are looking for ways outside of the traditional banking network. Perhaps they're looking at other ways for value and investment, including the crypto world. And the ability to have a spread of crypto assets and to be able to choose which of those at point of purchase you're going to use. I think that that's a real strength that you have. Not only a strength, it's also this thing of your personal sovereignty. For me, I think for Gary as well, not that we can plow a lot of money and we don't happen to be able to do that, but just the fact that we can look down a list of different assets and choose how we pay, and that the recipient doesn't even know that. They just get the money that they need to fulfill the transaction. It's very liberating. It's nice for us to be able to tell you this, Asher, but we find that very liberating. Is that the sort of feedback you generally get back, or is that not usually the reason that people are engaging with CoinJar?
Yeah, I think as with money, different people will have different views on money, and I think that's the same with cryptocurrency. Some people view it purely as a speculative asset. Some people have a strong use case for it that might not be able to be available to them due to being underserved by financial services, or some like yourselves may find it as a first step outside of the current confines of the financial system. I think there are degrees, and if you go to the purist, a purist might say only a Bitcoin to Bitcoin transaction is a true transaction. But I think the general idea of why Bitcoin was available in the first place is to give us all another option of how we want to direct our finances, right? So I think one more option is, which CoinJar is trying to do here, provide another avenue for use of cryptocurrencies. Is I'm happy to hear that's what you felt when you used the product for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I wondered also whether or not there's a big education piece for you and for CoinJar as a whole to get that message out, because I think there's a massive appetite for this personally. And yet to get that message out, it's not necessarily the easiest message. So I'd love to hear the sort of things that either you do or have done, or the challenges actually in doing that and getting that out. And also for people to feel secure around it. I feel particularly secure. I actually feel more secure than having money in a bank, right? I feel much more secure personally with CoinJar. But again, is that something that's been a major hurdle, or is that something that the whole, I suppose, the visibility of the crypto area generally is helping to take some of those barriers away?
Yeah, I think it's interesting going back to, I guess, early supporters of Bitcoin, and I guess why they chose Bitcoin in the first place. And I guess they were driven by some core beliefs that what Bitcoin stood for. As the number of cryptocurrencies increase, just in some cases like religion, different priorities seem to emerge over the course of the history of cryptocurrencies. And I guess now we see different people prioritizing different things. So I guess trying to get that message, there might be some common threads around each use of cryptocurrency. But I think even the cryptocurrency community as a whole may not always pull in the same direction, which I guess is the beauty of it, right? So it's not a one direct movement where everyone believes that this is the best use case, but I think that the ability that these platforms are open, they're interoperable many times between each other, I think is the beauty, right? It's a beauty of an open platform and choice. And although there is sometimes like a common thread and a message that we try and inform people, like the use cases, and I guess our service included, you'd be surprised of the diversity of opinions between the groups. So, some people are like, hey, we only need to keep crypto in crypto only. I will never sell my crypto, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not here to say, well, you should use your debit card and use your crypto sometimes. If some people feel like the best strategy for them is to accumulate one type of cryptocurrency as well. So I think for us, it's always been, we want to be a venue that allows you to complete some useful task in this realm of cryptocurrency. It's very hard to sort of back one sort of style of usage or even one coin or one ideology. But I think what we've built is a useful service for a wide range of people who are interested and want to have a first point of contact of cryptocurrency to say, hey, this actually works no matter what my use case may be. So that's sort of the approach we've taken.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear a lot of people and they're scared they don't have much money, so they think, well, if I invest it in something, whatever coin they choose, they then feel it's stuck. And I think my point to try and get across to people that it isn't necessarily, if you've got that bill to pay, or you need a pint of milk or some bread, you can use it. It isn't stuck in there. Before I found CoinJar, I thought, well, I could really do with I'm a bit short this month, but it's stuck in there, and and I've got to move things around. And where it's like well, no, I can keep most of it there and just use the little bit that I need to make this transaction. I find it very useful, I have to say.
And I guess especially in recent times where we've seen more creativity in the cryptocurrency industry, people talk about ideas such as Web3, new types of applications and online services that accept cryptocurrency. So while the use case for, I guess, a risk asset is sometimes applicable, many times you might find a novel application which only accepts cryptocurrency online. People have created virtual horse racing games where you could buy a horse and put a horse in a game and sort of breed it. Just by using a cryptocurrency wallet and interacting with that is an interesting experience in itself. So you can sort of have your own use cases and creativity of how you want to exercise on your CoinJar account.
Yeah, I think that for me, that's the beauty of it, is this element of choice at various different levels. As Gary said, rather than having something stuck in a wallet that you're just thinking about, is this going up or down? You can actually leverage the fact something's gone up and pay for something, something quite innocuous, like, as he mentioned, it could be a pint of milk. I mean, to even have our thinking in that way that actually, look, this doesn't need to be viewed in that static sense of, oh, today it's all a bit down, or tomorrow it's all a bit up, or hoping that something might happen. And the other thing, that having those numerous different coins that you support has enabled me to do, I then went away and I had a look at some of those that I wasn't familiar with. And you can see whether or not the ethos behind them, the technology behind them, and all of those things are things that you resonate with. It doesn't have to all be about making money. You might actually want to support one of those coins. And then you're also supporting CoinJar, and you're also freed up in terms of when you choose to spend and so on. So I think that for many people, that concept of moving away from fear and embracing more choice is something that I'd love this. I hope that this is a first step to bringing that to the fore. Because when Gary first mentioned it to me, I was a bit like, I just felt uncomfortable just because I didn't understand it. But the moment you've understood it, and particularly the moment I made my first purchase, it was all like, well, this is great. And we were also, Asher, really pleased to find that when we did have questions around things that we hadn't encountered before, there is backup for that. Because often you think with maybe a new technology or something you haven't come across before or isn't in the public perception, oh no, if I have to ask a question, is it going to take a week or two for someone to come back? Is nobody going to come back? But we both had great experiences on that. So is that something that you found had to really strongly underpin CoinJar? Because we found it was really helpful. Has that always been something easy to supply, or is that a real tough ask to have that sort of backing as well?
Yeah, I mean, running a challenge, running a service is a challenge. Nowadays the expectation for running an online service is that it works 24/7, 365 days a year. And your local bank outlet, retail outlet doesn't even do that. They close at 5 p.m. and you have to wait in a line, right? So getting the service to what we expect is always a challenge. And I think it's well documented that cryptocurrency services, especially in the height of bull markets, tend to have issues with operations just because it's always being too popular. So I think that's an underappreciated part of the journey of where some of these tech companies are not only building in a new field or using this new digital asset. They're trying to also build financial services companies where I guess the user and use cases are first, rather than arbitrary ways of how things were done before. And obviously being the UK, there's a lot said about fintech and growth in technology, and I think at least there's some appreciation for what some of the neobanks and other financial services have improved over the last decade or so here because of the innovations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it was my mistake I made on something, as usual, with this tech stuff. But I have to say, I thought, oh, here we go. I'm going to contact the customer service thing, and then they won't understand me or something, and we're going to go backwards and forwards. But it was a great customer service experience. That it was the same person that was always dealing with me. And it went over some days, but there was a continuation of conversation. I didn't have to keep saying, well, I spoke to your colleague and they said, I mean, is that in a customer service sense, is that something that's tricky to provide, or have you found that sort of it's really important to you?
Yeah, I mean the first customer service person for CoinJar was obviously myself. So
Right.
I've had my share of tickets when we first started as well, right? So I think again, building a company like this, you have to start with yourself, and you've got to sort of build a template for everyone else who does those tasks in the future to follow. And I think you talk about tech companies, different types of structures, flatter structures as well. But I think that the idea of service levels and how that we expect the quality of online services has really increased. And happy to hear that CoinJar's trying to be up with the quality of the rest of those high quality online services right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny for me because with tech companies generally, I tend to think that it's going to feel very robotic and very inhuman when you engage in that way that Gary just described. And I had a similar, again, probably just my lack of knowledge and understanding. And I was supported in that way too. And the great thing is that you're dealing with something that is, well, to me at least, really much steeped in tech. But yet when it came to engaging and asking questions and whatever, it felt very human. Is that something, Asher, that you've tried to cultivate, or is that just something that's blossomed within CoinJar? I'm interested in how that's sort of come about. Is that maybe having a smaller team? Why do you think that's happened?
Yeah, I think especially when you talk about cryptocurrencies, there's some sort of distinction between a centralized service and a decentralized service.
Yeah.
With a decentralized service, well, no one's really in charge. So no one's really responsible to help. And, where we sit, we're a very centralized service interacting with a decentralized network. So our value add is very much trying to make products and experiences as easy as possible for people to interact with a decentralized network. Maybe in the future, in 50, 100 years, everything will get so efficient that you might not even need a company like CoinJar, and you could acquire and use cryptocurrency directly on the network without intermediaries. But our value add and what you pay a small fee for very much is us trying to help people get started into cryptocurrency, and as much as possible. So that's where we come in, and I think that's where we want to try and be the best at as well.
Yeah, and it totally feels like that. Just in terms of this absolute focus that there is on anything in the financial services and fintech and crypto area at the moment, are you able to think about your next steps and how CoinJar might evolve with your customers at the moment, or is it very much a thing of consolidation at present? Because my hope is that you're always able to think of what those next steps might be and start to take action towards them. But I understand that at the moment, particularly, there's this heavy level of scrutiny. How are you finding that? Are you still able to look to the future at the moment, or is this very much about looking at what's happening currently?
Yeah, I think an interesting aspect of the cryptocurrency industry is users quite clearly will demand certain features or certain things that they want.
Yeah.
And at many times it's up to companies like us to respond to them. And sometimes they come off and sometimes they don't. I mean, 18 months ago, a lot were clamoring for NFT services, which has cooled down a lot. And some people did build marketplaces or services for NFTs, which might not be heavily used now, but maybe in the future.
Yeah.
And at least they were heavily requested back then. So it is quite an interesting, balance of finding what people are interested in, trying to build it to their specifications to meet their needs. And I think this happens at a very quick pace and with products that people haven't even imagined yet. So compared to maybe some industries which are a bit more well-trodden, at least in a product sense, I think new ideas and new products come up all the time in the cryptocurrency sphere. And, it's as a product team, I guess takes a bit of wisdom to try and figure out which is what the market really needs, and I guess what is commercially viable for a company to make it.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, because you could be very reactive all the time and as you rightly say, build all sorts of other things and put your time, obviously finances and people in a certain direction. And if that for any reason does fall away, it may have diverted you from what are the real next steps. So do you feel that actually in your space, it is important to be sort of reactionary but very considered in your next steps? Or do you see that actually there are plans that you can make now to actually affect change and the direction that things go? So I'd love to hear in your mind whether or not is there a balance between those two, or is there a particular trajectory that you think is probably more commercial for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all play a small part in, I mean, maybe at the very start we thought we maybe had a a larger say in the direction of where things went in the future. But
Yeah.
I think after 10 years, we all accept that we only can nudge things in the direction that we think they should go in. I think the most important thing is you just have to keep in contact with your customer base and who your true customers really are. I mean, the service may evolve, but again, if there's a good experience, people do remember which company served them, and regardless of exactly what the service was. So I think we're all along for this journey. It's been 10 years so far. I'm quite excited to see what the next 10 years will bring in terms of product innovations and how Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies may fit into everyday life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I understand that we don't have a huge amount of time today. And one thing I did want to mention before we sort of wrap up, other than I'd love you to come back sometime, but don't answer that now. And I don't want you to feel any pressure to ever come back. But I think we've got a lot more to cover. But one thing I did want to mention is a lot of people who might be our audience might find the cryptocurrency, for example, the Stellar XLM, is something that there's a lot of interest and hype around in our world, so to speak. And just to say, that is supported by CoinJar. So that was also another reason that we gravitated towards CoinJar too. So I wanted to mention that because it might have some resonance for people, and people might want to look at XLM and Stellar. And I wanted to say, Asher, look, as I said, love to see you again, but there's no pressure on that. But I thought that this was a really illuminating first conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Asher.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, and we hope to see you again. So from us at Quantum Bridge, until next time, thank you very much. Thank you, Asher.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
See you later.
Bye.